In this episode of the Project Management Podcast, we meet Sunil Prashara, President and CEO of the Project Management Institute, and we talk about PMI's transformational journey. Hello and welcome back to the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com. I am Cornelius Fichtner. We are coming to you live from the 2019 PMI Global Conference in Philadelphia. And with me right now is Sunil Prashara, the President and CEO of PMI. Hello, Sunil.
Yeah, good morning, Cornelius. Lovely to meet you.
Same here. So you are the President and CEO of PMI. What are your main responsibilities in this role?
The first responsibility, I guess, is to be the lead advocate for the profession of project management. What does that mean? That means that effectively, as the leader of the Project Management Institute operational functions, it's my role to ensure that the messages that PMI are sending are landing across the globe with various individuals, with organizations, with governments, and the like. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the key responsibility. Embedded in that is I'm also responsible for the operational management of the PMI Institute. That is everything from managing the content of the certifications, managing the types of certifications that we do, the standards, the methodologies, basically being the organization that's responsible for ensuring that everything that there is to be known about project management is getting out there to the communities.
And who do you report to?
So I report to a board. The board is made up of, it's a non-paid board, so it's a volunteer board. It's made up of 12, actually it's made up of 13 individuals. 13, is it? 13?
I think, they went down from 15 to 12, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it's gone down to 12 now. Yeah, so when I joined...
I never know the number myself.
So I think that before I joined it was 15. Yeah. So during my interview process, I think it was 15. And then by the time I came on board, it had gone down to 12. So that's where we are today. 12 non-paid volunteers that have had long history in project management, various different executive roles, and they come from all sorts of disciplines from all around the globe. And I basically report into the board.
Right. You mentioned your interview process. You've been on the job close to 7 months now. So far, what's been the biggest surprise for you?
Well, I was told during my interview process that
everybody gets told something that doesn't pan out.
So I was told that the global reach of PMI will be something that will really surprise me, and boy, it really has, because I spent 7 months traveling around the globe, meeting chapters from all different parts of the world, and I was blown away by the scale and size of the PMI family. And it really is a family. Actually, it's more than a family. That's the other surprise. The whole organization really operates on the back of the hard work that is put forward by the volunteer community. And there are thousands of them. And their passion and desire for project management is off the scale. And you can't even, it's beyond off the scale. It's incredible. It's such an amazing thing to see, because I come from a for-profits world. PMI is not for profits. And many of my colleagues who don't appreciate what PMI stand for in the for-profits world are blown away when I talk to them about the kind of work that the volunteers will do to keep the whole organization running. And to see it firsthand at events like the one that we're at today, and what I saw in Singapore or what I saw in Tanzania at the various LIMS or conventions, congresses that we have, it's incredible to see that. So I think that is a huge surprise for me. The scale and size of the organization, the reach that the organization has, the passion of the people that are associated with PMI, and the expertise that is sitting in spades around the organization. Incredible amount of expertise and depth of knowledge from years right the way up to recent activities. So it really is an amazing association of individuals that come together to create something very, very special. And seeing all of that in reality, when the board says, "Oh, you're going to be surprised when you join," boy, was I surprised, but in such a nice way. It's an iconic moment of my career, I have to say.
All right. Let me jump on something you said earlier, for-profit and not-for-profit.
Yeah.
I looked at your resume. Impressive. There are many for-profit companies out there who would fight to have you as their CEO. Why did you choose a non-profit?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have had a really, really good career with some amazing companies. I'm very proud of the organizations that I've represented, and they've really helped shape me into the type of person that I am today. It goes without saying. One of the things that I noticed as I grew in my own career into a more senior role was that there was tremendous focus placed on shareholder value and profitability. And as I became more and more senior, eventually I got a role as a CEO for a for-profits company working for Carlyle. And the drive for profitability and the drive for shareholder value became like the ultimate goal for that organization, to the detriment of other parts of what an organization stands for. And that hurt me. You know, I thought there was more to life than just making money. Success. My father used to tell me, you will know what success is when you make the people around you successful, when they feel success and they attribute that success to the work that you have done to help them. That is the feeling of success. And I was not getting that feeling by just making shareholders more wealthy and delivering, financial results. There was a lot more to life than that. So I actually left that field before I even joined PMI and set up my own company because I noticed that and my company was focused on startups. And I noticed that once a startup managed to get to its feet, the banks and the private equity and the VC companies would swoop in and they'd take it, help the company grow, but for one purpose only. That purpose was to make more money, not for what the proposition was or what the initial founder was trying to do with the company, which typically was much more than just making money. They were trying to make a difference. They were trying to do something. So my company is actually called I Want To. I want to help. I want to make a difference. And it was not about making money. It was about taking these smaller organizations and helping them scale without them losing their ownership of the company or the identity of the company, and growing the organization and landing the company in various industries to a point where it was really starting to make a difference. And the money side of it came second. And if it was a successful company, of course they'll make money, and it will be a for-profits company. So my own organization that I set up was all about trying to make a difference. And when PMI approached me, my first, I have to be honest, I was like, PMI, I hadn't really heard about them. I knew it was some kind of association, and that's about all I knew. And it was actually my wife who said, you ought to have a look at this job spec, Sunil. This is exactly what you are as a person. It's not, forget what the job is, what they're describing as a person, it's you. And my first instinct was, nah, I don't have time. I'd rather watch Liverpool Football Club play, But she made me read it. And I read the job spec and I said, you know what? You're right. This really, it's like me. It's not a CV that I need to put forward. It's literally me. The way they were describing the role and the kind of person they were looking for, it just ticked so many boxes. And the biggest box of all was that it was a for-purpose organization trying to make people around them successful, which is what my father had been saying to me ever since I was a child. So that piqued my interest. I met with the board, and I remember in the board saying, I'm not going to do a sales pitch. I'm just going to I have my own company, and we're going on a great journey with that company. I'm loving it. I'm intrigued by PMI. Tell me about what you stand for. And the board, they took their time, said, this is what we're trying to do, this is where we're trying to go. And I said, you know what? What you're doing is you're accelerating my own mission. I'm there struggling with my own little startup that I'm growing, but you're already there. So why wouldn't I take what you've got and try and take it to the next level? So it was a match made in heaven. It really, really was. And one of the things I'm sure the board will tell you is that their strongest advocate is me. I really am. I totally buy into what PMI stands for and what the mission is and where we're going as an organization. I mean, it's literally in 7 months, completely in the blood. It's fantastic.
Would you please relay our thanks to your wife? Because we're happy to have you.
Well, I mean, one thing that I do need to thank her, because the last 7 months have been a a whirlwind of travel and meeting lots and lots of people. I met thousands of people, literally, or from all over the world. So she deserves a lot of thanks, because I don't think she realized it would mean that she won't be seeing as much of me as she's been used to seeing. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I will relay your thanks.
You mentioned in another interview that PMI will be a digital organization and that you're working on the association of the future. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole world is starting to use data to help in making decisions, whether you're a government, whether you're an organization, even whether you're an individual. You're relying on more and more data points to help you make decisions in life and help you take you forward. PMI is no different. We have a huge outreach, global outreach, 300 chapters around the world, talking with people about all things project. So we have a tremendous amount of insight, knowledge, experience, best practice, ways of doing things, formats, foundations, methodologies, frameworks, certifications, tremendous amount of insight, contacts, relationships, networks with governments, academia, etc. That is all data. From that data, we can really become very proactive in the way we reach out to our individuals. Today, for example, I'm an accountant by trade, and I get my accounting magazine that comes every month, and it's got 60, 70 pages, and maybe 2 or 3 pages of that accounting magazine are relevant for me, whereas the rest of it is actually irrelevant and probably won't be read by me, certainly. Maybe other people will find it relevant. But that's actually quite a waste. Imagine a world where you could reach out in advance to an individual and give them insight and information before they even know they need it, because you know that they are working on something that may be relevant to a project. So you can send them information in advance so that when they read that or see that, they can say, hey, this is really relevant for me. And therefore, the outreach that we're giving to the individual or to the company is bespoke, it's curated, it's relevant for that individual, per individual. That's what I mean by a digital organization. We can do that. We're not there today, but we're marching towards that world. That is a world where we're proactively reaching out rather than guessing what the individual needs. We're using our information, we're using our data to create content that's relevant and specific per individual. And we have millions of individuals. So imagine that, individual bespoke insights. So what you receive on a month basis is relevant to you versus what I receive on a month. It's completely different information, but relevant to each other. That's what I mean by digitization. I think there's a lot more to it than just that. I think that the way we operate as an organization, there's a lot of automation that we need to adopt. We have grown organically, and it's fair to say that the growth has been fantastic over a 50-year period. And operationally, we've made do with the systems. Some of them are quite legacy systems. And it's about time that we started to think about our future growth and accelerating that growth. We can't do that with the systems and processes that we have in place today. So we have to digitize those as well. We have to automate where we can. We have to optimize where we can, streamline where we can, make it more efficient, and ensure that we become extremely customer-centric. And therefore, our customer journeys become very important. We need to be an organization that's easy to work with, easy to be able to, that can respond very rapidly, that provides a service to our membership that delights them. We can't do that with our existing environment system, so we have to transform to do that and move more towards a digital world. So it's a two-way thing. It's an outreach, and it's also an optimization internally.
Mm-hmm. Many of our listeners are also PMI members, and PMI is member-driven. How can the members support that journey?
In a lot of different ways. First of all of our thought leadership and thinking comes from our members, right? And research that we do, but a lion's share of it comes from our members. What they are experiencing, what they see and do in their working lives, how they contribute out to the various different projects that they're working on. That insight is very important for us because that keeps us relevant. As we know and learn about what the members around the world are doing, we can shape our services, our products, our capabilities, our outreaches in a way that keeps us relevant and provides better insight. Learning about best practice in Argentina about how to build a dam and the lessons learned can be shared with Africa and the Congo, where they're thinking about building a dam, and we can share that information between members. So that's one way how they can contribute. If you look at what that is, I call that two-way communication. And one of the things I did when I first started here was to set up the channels of communication. One of them is called Straight Talk with Sunil, and that's where I talk with members of my own organization, the staff, about what they're doing in their specific area. It could be the certification department, it could be the outreach department, it could be the volunteering team, it could be the folks who look at standards. And we have really deep conversations about, what's actually going on in that place, what's top of mind, what's happening in that part of the world, that specific area, that specific ecosystem, and what are we doing about it. That then gets shared out to a really broad community, and I invite people to write back and say, hey, what do you think? And there are different channels that they can use. One is a straight email to me, directly to me. That's on sunil@pmi.org. Or the other way is they can actually go onto our website on pmi.org, and then if you click on our leadership and then go into CEO Corner, you see all of the various different straight talks and other podcasts and whatnot, and you can respond to those, and I typically look at those.
All right, now make sure that we have the link to that on the show notes on the PM Podcast website.
No, that's great. And to be honest, to answer your question specifically, much of what we are sharing with our community through the certifications, through the standards, has been derived by experiences and knowledge and best practice from those members. So we're just sharing, in a way, we're like a distribution channel for best practice of how stuff gets done, and all in its different formats. That's what we're trying to do.
Right. As part of this journey, PMI is currently embarking on a rebranding, and I think powering the project economy is at the center of all of this. Talk us through this.
Okay. So in my mind, there are two components of the project economy. The first component is a broader definition of the project economy, which I'd like to share with you. And then there's more of a tactical one, which is what does it mean for work as we see in the future. So let's take the formal one, the more sort of global perspective. We produce a report, a very good report annually, which is called the Signpost Report. What that is a body of work that's conducted during the year, where we look at all the macroeconomic activities that are going on around the world, and we formulate a view on those. Let me give you an example. There is an impact of rising water levels in the world today. I'll talk about the impact in a minute. There is an impact to the world and the world of work of the fact that there is less demand for fossil fuels and a growing demand for alternative energy. That's having an impact. I'll talk about that impact in a minute. There is a demand and a change in the way companies are working together. We're becoming a lot more divisionalized. We used to be the world is flat, but now we're becoming a lot more insular, and organizations saying, countries are saying, let's put our foot forward first before we think about others. There is changes in, reduction in fresh water. That's having an impact around the world. There are population increases at exponential levels in the world. Technology is driving tremendous change. These are all signposts. These are all things that are happening in the world that are changing the way countries are operationalizing their workforces and changing the way that they are being, whether they're relevant or not. I'll give you an example. In the Middle East, with the demand for fossil fuels declining, various governments are saying, well, what are we going to do if our main revenue source, which is oil or whatever, starts to decline and people start to move towards solar energy? Well, they need to stay relevant because they're a trading nation and they need to trade with other people. That has an economic impact on them. So they're thinking about, okay, well, what do we want to be in the future? And some countries are saying, okay, we want to go into the medical field and let's become strong in medical. Others are saying, let's go into tourism. Others are saying we want to have smart cities so we can attract enterprise and business. So they're transforming and changing. That's project work. But they're doing it for a reason. The reason why they're doing it is because of their economy. And their economy is changing In order for them to stay relevant and continue to trade, they need to morph into something different. Let me give you an example. Africa. Africa's population today is 1.4 billion. In the next 30 years, the expectation is it will become 2.5 billion. To house those extra people, there's an estimation that you will need to build 750 million homes in Africa. That's 65,000 homes a day built every day for the next 30 years. Now, imagine how many schools, imagine how many hospitals, imagine how much infrastructure, how many roads. The 3 fastest growing cities in the world right now are sitting in Africa. Why are they doing all of this? First of all, they have to respond to the population increase, but they need to stay relevant. Who's going to fund it? How's it going to happen? Who's going to build the enterprise that sits around? These are all projects. All those countries need to do this. They can either bring outside in and use World Bank to do it, and China is doing a lot of work in that space to help them, or they can do it themselves. Driving projects within the organization. And talking about China, what about the BAR project, the Belt and Road project? That's $1 trillion worth of investment in 60 different countries. Why is China doing that? It's an economic reason for why they're doing that, and that is project work in 60 countries. So that's one definition of the project economy at the macro level, and we need to respond to that. I feel that the world of project and all things project, and you can call it project, you can call it product, you can call it value levers, you can call it, the work that needs to be done in that world is huge, and we play a big part in that. And the underlying reason is relevance. Whether you're a country looking for continued trade in the future, or whether you're an enterprise that says, hey, I need to contribute towards that trade, or you're an individual that's saying, hey, I need to contribute to that company to allow it to trade, etc. We play a big part in that. So that's one side of it. Now let's look at it from a tactical perspective, project economy. There's a lot of thought process that the world of work is going to change. People in the future will not have long-term roles where you start as a graduate and you retire in the same company. That's already happening. But what's also happening is, because different skill sets are going to be required at different times, functions within organizations, we believe, are going to change as well. So you will have much more project-based tasks for various functions in an organization, and people will move from one task to another. What do I mean by that? One day I may be a finance guy working in finance, and I might do that for a few months on a specific project. The next day I may be required to go and work in a sales department on something that might be finance related but has more sales spin on it. So there is no role where you're half the time a finance guy, half the time a sales guy, half the time a HR guy, half the time something else. That's what we mean by the project economy, that the work that people are doing is going to become task orientated as opposed to functional orientated with an outcome. Specific tasks, discrete, small project, and people will move from project to project to project. So not only will you have this macro impact that's happening, that means that people and organizations will be lending their hand on lots of different things around the world, but the way that work is structured and formatted will change as well, and we call that the project economy. So the two combined together, the macro impact and the impact of the way work is done in the future, the two together, for me, constitute the project economy.
I've done an interview with Brightline, with Ricardo Vargas, so our listeners are aware of what Brightline is and what it does. How is Brightline going to help PMI get that message across?
Okay, so that must have been a very long interview with Ricardo. Brightline is very, very exciting. Today I would call it a brand and a potential value proposition for PMI moving forward that addresses a specific segment in the market. So Brightline was started before me, so I don't profess to own it, but I am bringing it to reality. And what Brightline stands for is, how do you take the ideas that are generated by executives, thought leaders at the senior level, like the chief strategy officer, etc.? How do you take those ideas that they generate and convert them into reality? That conversion to reality is the line of Brightline. How do you take that thought process and that creativity that sits in the chief strategy officer's mind as they research their particular challenge that they have as an organization and decide to transform? How do you take that decision point and make it real? That, I think, is what Brightline is all about. And it plays to a slightly different role to the typical project manager. And it's really playing more to the transformation, a specific component of project management, which is transformation. We're going through our own transformation. I've appointed a transformation lead. That transformation lead is translating the strategic desires of the board and making it into a reality. That person's role, he wakes up every morning to do that. So what can we do to help that individual, the transformation lead, deliver on those particular ideas and make them a reality? So the last few months, we've pivoted from creating the recognition that there needs to be this line with the work that we did by landing the Brightline brand to now making it, the Brightline itself, a reality. And that is by focusing on frameworks and thought processes and methodologies to support the transformation lead, who is the person who typically is responsible for taking those ideas and making them real. That's Brightline.
Thank you. In closing the interview, where do you see PMI 10 years from now?
Great question. I think that we have this strategy that when I first joined, it was called PMI 2.0. It's a great strategy. It involved two components. The first component was the laying down of the foundational components of PMI, operational components like upgrading our ERP system, finance systems, upgrading our CRM. So what I would call is the basic block and tackle stuff that we needed to do to enable us to scale. The second area was of that PMI 2.0 was how can we position ourselves so we can start to build the channels of communication out to our broader community, so that would also fuel our growth. And the rebranding, which you've seen, is part of that. We also came up with this concept called leapfrog. Leapfrog was how do we leapfrog to the ahead of the curve as opposed to, trailing behind. I'll give you a reason why we said that is that we felt that we missed the boat on Agile. We should have been way ahead on the Agile curve. Now, Agile is one key small component of the world of project, right? And I'm sure there are many listeners here who will say, well, why the focus on Agile? Well, I've only been here 7 months. We made a couple of acquisitions in Agile. It was part of 2.0 strategy. We needed to do that to catch up. So that wasn't a leapfrog. It was a catch up. We're still looking at our traditional waterfall techniques. I mean, the lion's share of projects and work needs to be done is not in the technology world. It's in infrastructure, it's in construction, it's in building, it's in engineering. And so we still will focus on that core, but we need to also have points of view in these other areas. That brings me on to, okay, so that's all going to land. And over the last 18 months, and certainly the last 7 months, we have been operationalizing those transformations. And they're all going well. You can see the brand now as one of them that we launched. 10 years from now, where's that going to take us? Well, by putting in that footprint, putting in that the foundation, we are in a position where we can scale. And the signpost report that we do is telling us we need to do this. Why? Because of all the things I mentioned earlier that's changing in the world, where projects are becoming more and more pervasive and there's this project economy developing. We need to be at the front end of that. And leapfrog is why we've termed our next transformation or strategic thrust PMI 4.0. So we've bypassed or leapfrogged over 3.0. There is no 3.0. We're going straight to 4.0. So let me give you a small snapshot of what I think that is. First thing is, we are going to be relevant to people from the age of 5 right the way through to the point of retirement and beyond. I call it 5 to 75. I've just anchored on 75. It could be 85. It could be 95. I just anchored on 75 only because it sounds good. 5 to 75. It could be 5 to 85. What does that mean? That means we want to create skills at an early age in children that are life skills that they're going to need for the rest of their lives and that you can build on with project skills thereafter. So I'll give you an example. You know, as a 5-year-old, respecting your time, how much time you should be spending playing versus how much time you should be spending learning, etc. And as you grow older, your respect for your elders, your stakeholders, managing your time between study and playing Xbox, and putting your toys away and having a structured way of how you approach your life is important. These are life skills, and it's very easy for kids. I've got kids myself, and it's very easy for them to just spend their entire day on their iPad playing games or on their Xbox playing games and forget reality that's out there. We know that skills in the future are going to be more than just the hard skills, the soft skills, or what we now call the power skills, like empathy, like understand communication, like a creative mindset. These are going to be important, and you can develop those at an early age, 5 to 75, and we can support youth right the way through universities, schooling, education, and into their program management, project management world. If the whole world is going to become projectified, then they're going to need those skills in some way, shape, or form. And then you take it further as they develop into programs, projects, and they become bigger in their roles. And of course, you can jump off at any time, right? But those skills will be relevant in whatever you do. And then as you scale and become more of a leader, why wouldn't we have something for our more senior, more executive stakeholders? And that's where Brightline comes in. So in the early stages, we have PMI EF, Education Foundation, that helps develop and nurture youth. In the center, we have our current propositions, PMPs and certifications and standards and discipline agile and new ways of doing work. And then at the later stage, we have Brightline, taking strategy and thought leadership and making it a reality. That's our 5 to 75. So one component of the future will be our thrust into the 5 to 75 mindset across the whole chain. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we want to become all things project. What do I mean by that? We want to become the go-to place in the world for the best thinking around how to get work done. You can call it project, you can call it program, you can call it product, but it's actually how do you get stuff done in a complex world, in a world where there are moving and shifting tides. How do you get work done? We want to be the go-to place, the Wikipedia, if you like, of all things project. To do that, we need data. To do that, we need insight. To do that, we need more input from our volunteers, from our memberships, so that we can then play back to them. Hey, if you want to develop something, we are the place to go to. We're helped to do it. And we do it not for profits. We're not doing it for any other reason other than to make you successful, because that's our mission. Our mission is to make you all successful, to be something that's purposeful in this society. So there we'll be there. So Wikipedia of all things project, 5 to 75. And the other thing I think we will be doing a lot in the future is we will be doing a lot more collaboration. I think that this organization is the most collaborative organization I've ever come across, but we're going to do even more. An example, I coined the phrase association of associations. We can't be the masters of everything, but we do have this amazing global distribution channel. So we could be a market for even more knowledge beyond project and getting work done. Like, for example, creating a relationship with institutes of marketing, of finance, of procurement. And they have memberships as well. Why can't we work together with these other associations to say, hey, you may have a person who's coming from a marketing background and is now moving into an operational role or a project-based role, and they may need some insight, but they spent their entire career learning about marketing, and now all of a sudden they may need a bit of project management skills. So rather than going off and doing a whole scale, certification, here's a mini cert that you can have to help and complement your career, and vice versa. We may have a project guy who's a PMP and has got loads of letters after his name, but doesn't know anything about sales or finance, and they can tap into, through our association of associations, into institutions that specialize in sales, like the Professional Institute of Sales, or finance, like the Chartered Institute of Accounting. And they have provided small snippets of their syllabus or their thinking about how and what you need to have, and you can tap into that. That's association, and then we can share each other's membership and scale and grow. We are perfectly placed with our global footprint to be that marketplace. So I see that as association of associations, an expansion of our influence across organizations, academia, society as a whole. That's the future.
And of course, you need help with that. And so here's my call to our listeners. If you are not yet a volunteer, please contact the membership director at your local PMI chapter and say, I want to help power the project economy. Sunil, thank you so much for having been with us today.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you very much, Cornelius. Cheers.